This is episode number 390, The Age of WordPress Acquisitions.
Hey.
Brought to you by ServerPress, makers desktop server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out at serverpress.com.
Hey.
And Loft. Loft provides support for WordPress sites, including disaster preparedness, patches, maintenance and plugin management, content updates, and more, all for a flat monthly fee. You can get a free trial. Go over to poweredbyloft.com to check it out. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm an IT director and web developer. Find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter.
I'm Steve Zengit. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup.
I'm read at media.
Hey.
You know what who it is? It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg, and no one expects the WordPress acquisition.
Go and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And if you haven't joined yet, go over to our Discord. Go to WPwatercooler.com/Discord, where you can go and follow us over there and hang out with the fine folks hanging out in that room.
It is nothing.
What's up, everyone?
Hey.
How are y'all doing?
Look, it's Cory Miller.
Hey, Cory Miller.
Right?
Now I know why you guys were warning me.
Cory Miller of Post Status.
Yeah.
Right?
That's got to be the best intro music ever. Like, you're number one. I rate you number one on iTunes because that's the best intro I've ever been a part of.
I agree.
Yay.
I think it's the best intro you've ever been a part of, too.
It sounds way better on the podcast though when I turn off Say's audio, because it echoes the echo and it's echoing the echo. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Say needs some headphones.
I'm sorry. Who wants to chip in? Can we start a GoFundMe for my headphones?
I'll just buy you some headphones. They're going to be the $10 skull candy ones, but I will get you some headphones.
Y'all heard it here. My birthday was last week, by the way.
Oh, they're in the mail.
Just saying.
I said happy birthday.
I know you did. Anyway.
So let's talk. We have Steve on, who I typically think of as like the Mr. Business type person, but then I needed to get a more Mr. Businessy type person on the show other than Steve. So I was like, Cory Miller.
It's
Cory on to come and talk. Now I know Mr. Business is also like the evil person in like the Lego movie and all that stuff. I totally understand that. But it's just I needed like somebody that's like not Steve to talk about businessy things. And every time I think about this stuff, I think Cory Miller. And then Cory, there's been acquisitions, there's been all sorts of things that have happened, in his past. And I was like, perfect person to pull in and talk about this stuff.
I want to point out that you thought Mr. Business equals Cory Miller prior to the Post Status acquisition.
Oh.
Like you've mentioned that before, and the Post
I have mentioned that before.
Just happened. So I just want to say your reputation as Mr. Business is
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I've got a new bio to share with people, which is I'm the Mr. Business, which is aka +1 to Steve Zengit.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, sorry, my friend Steve, but I felt
All good. Yeah.
If Steve gets introduced, I can come in.
On a normal podcast, they refer to me as not Cory.
Yeah, that's true. And will forevermore.
I'll need to update the video intro. I'll update the video intro to reflect those changes.
all business, all Mr. Business aside, I think this is a really crucial and interesting time in the WordPress ecosystem. And I think that there really isn't a better person to talk about that from a drone. Can we say drone's eye perspective now instead of like eagle's eye perspective?
Sure.
I like what the drone shot.
That's very
WordPress ecosystem. Yeah, like an eagle's like looking for bugs and like not bugs, like nice. Like I want the drone shot, like the tech dude. What do you see? That's what I'm looking for.
So it does seem like every week or nearly every day somebody's getting acquired within our space, and it's only recently that it's really ramped up. It feels like this year it's just everybody's being acquired, and their mother.
Yeah,
I'm
truly.
waiting for Jetpack to acquire WordPress. That is where it's going to be pretty badass.
For the record, the day that happens, we have to I don't know, we should all get Bitcoin or something just because of our amazing prediction skills for that. That's gonna happen. Anyway.
So
You know,
were there any particular recent acquisitions, Jason, that made you think of this topic for today?
Well, we went to go set this up, because Cory does the businessy things as talking to his assistant about these things, trying to figure this stuff out. And it was a couple weeks back when there was another acquisition. I actually searched for the word WordPress acquisition because I just wanted to see where was it that we were at. But there was another acquisition that happened a while back with I think it was the one with Liquid Web that they just recently did, and that was the one that
with WP Give.
WP
Give.
It's Give WP, Steve.
Sorry.
You obviously don't have their cup.
My apologies to Devin and Matt.
So that was the one that triggered this whole idea. But then on top of it, the most recent one that happened is with let's see here. Oh, with the journaling app Day One.
Yeah.
That WordPress.com.
Which is one of my favorite apps, by the way.
That's an automatic acquisition.
Automatic.
That's not a WordPress acquisition. So while that does indicate Matt of Automatic is on a spending spree, which is totally a thing. How does that so we're seeing that, I think, in a really larger ecosystem thing. It's not just the big players. There are a lot of little companies that are getting bought up right now and don't really want to talk about it, but some people are combining those into other groups of things. So that's a thing that's going to launch, also coming from Liquid Web. Mm-hmm. How much of this is Liquid Web behind? That's really my question.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it a Liquid Web acquisition spree, or is it WordPress Web?
So a couple years ago, I would have said the theme of the acquisitions is our friend Syed at Awesome Motive. He was on a tear, and I think I texted him privately, but I said it publicly too because I wanted everybody to know how jealous I was. His idea to do the accelerator was one of the best ideas ever, and the way I always root for the entrepreneur, by the way. And Syed being one of, I know for sure Steve and I's dear friends, I root for Syed. But he's just a brilliant entrepreneur, a strategic master, and he's built this empire where it's so interesting to see what he's done. So a couple years ago, it would have been Syed. He's killing it, and he still is there for sure. This year, it definitely feels like, or last 6 plus months, it feels like Liquid Web for sure. And they're going on a tear. In fact, I interviewed my former colleague Matt Danner, who's now GM of iThemes and has led a lot of those acquisitions about it yesterday. And it was just really interesting, and I love it. I mean, they obviously see something in the market and have the cash to go out and do it, and then now the kind of infrastructure to do that. And for me, it's when you talk to M&A people, particularly another friend of ours, Kareem at Crowd Favorite, you're seeing a bunch of roll-ups.
My favorite day of people.
You're seeing a lot of roll-ups in companies, and I think I'm not speaking for Liquid Web, but this is a great example of a roll-up, which happens in all kinds of other industries for hundreds of years.
So roll-up meaning the companies and services are consolidated, right, under one roof.
Absolutely.
Another company, by the way, it's not just Liquid Web. I would say that it's mostly the hosting companies, but it is also WP Engine, who's been buying up. Did they buy up which Gatsby did they buy up? Not Gatsby, but the
the GraphQL plugin that helps
that one
integrate Gatsby. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are putting a lot of effort into headless. WP Engine is, and they've been acquiring. So it almost looks like everyone's acquiring services for a really particular persona. All of these big hosting companies are really putting they're like, all right, WP Engine is going after, you know, the kind of app creator or like the all-in-one, like, you know, their experience, right? It's the web experience that they're doing. And Liquid Web seems to be going after more of the user or the business user.
Yes.
That would be my assessment there.
I think you nailed it. I mean, if you think about like what I would do in the past is I put on my, WP Engine hat or my automatic hat and try to think if I was, you know, controlling the ship there, what would I want to do? And typically they talk about build, buy, or partner. You know, okay, we want to do something new. We want to try to take more market share, whatever that is. Okay, let's go build it. People like Cosper, how do we build this? You know, but then the buy and partner are the other sides that you're seeing, which is acceleration. A lot of the deals you're seeing, I think, are accelerating feature sets, acquiring customer and market and revenue. Like a lot of the hosting companies particularly think about like Endurance, who I believe still owns Bluehost.
That's EIG, Endurance Impact Group, something like that.
International Group, I think was EIG. So they were rolling up all kinds of shared hosting companies because they wanted to get that market share. And to me, it's like there's kind of two people in that space, GoDaddy in the shared hosting space and EIG. And then you still got this awesome independent called SiteGround out there fighting. And there's a bunch of others. I'm not trying.
DreamHost.
And DreamHost too. Yeah, absolutely. And but the field has consolidated so much where, for instance, back in the day, 10 years ago, I was a huge HostGator fan. And like everything, ebbs and flows.
HostGator.
Cosper's been through this a bunch of times.
A very small orange. Do you remember a very small orange?
That's an EIG brand now too.
Yeah, I just like, what a brand name. And then that gets like, just how do you like even fit that in a portfolio? It's just such a funny name.
So, I mean, we've talked so far about sort of what's going on in our immediate world with some of the hosting companies with Automatic. I mean, it does seem like that has exploded, but there's actually a lot of acquisitions that's happening right outside of our world as well. Right, this is happening in the agency space as well. There's a lot of agencies that are being rolled up into larger agencies. It's happening on a small scale too. For instance, Alex Vasquez, DigiSavvy, he bought a plugin a couple of years ago called Ignition Deck, and he took that over, right? So it's not just big players, right? It's small and medium-sized players as well. It's happening all over the place.
Well, I wonder if some of it has, I mean, the longer term, I think right now there was a really big shift because of, you know, last year and the COVID and all of that stuff. So I think there was probably a lot of shifting of priorities for a lot of kind of these one person projects like Advanced Custom Fields, for example, with Elliot C, whose last name I can't remember how many R's or N's or D's it has in it. Sorry. But you know, that's kind of like, this has grown so big, you know, and I can't even handle it. And so many people, more people got online last year that a lot of freelancers and devs and probably plugin support, this is something you might be able to comment on in terms of plugin developers and their support requests going way up, that it just got too big to handle. And so they needed to either expand or, you know, grow themselves or go to a company that has the resources to manage it. I think that's like a weird growth impact that that COVID and the lockdown had on our industry.
This reminds me a lot of old Hunter S. Thompson saying, which is when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. And all these companies getting acquired, the going has gotten weird enough for them. Things are expanding in a way that, you know, they just haven't expected. So, all right, it's time to throw ourselves in with a managed hosting company or, you know, whoever's basically buying.
Well, I mean, you think about it.
That was specifically Cosper. That was our my decisions for being acquired and pursuing that is, you know, in 2008 when we started iThemes, I mean, it was the Wild Wild West, but it was a great day and we enjoyed, you know, some blue oceans and did a lot of good. And then I think it was like 2014, someone at server companies go, hey, could you run a report on WordPress and see what this thing called WordPress is? And the result came back and was like, hey, it's 40% of our infrastructure. And then now you got all these huge companies with money like going, oh, turn, opportunity. And so overnight, it felt like almost all these hosting companies started really pointing their attention toward WordPress. I mean, SiteGround's history was started in Joomla, and then they came in and are killing it in WordPress. So that's what I played the script forward and go, we were a utility company at iThemes, and I go backups and security. If I put on my GoDaddy hat, my WP Engine hat, my Liquid hat, and try to think like them, I'd go strategically, I want to expand out my value footprint from not just being bare metal or space on the box to like, what if we, create this whole feature set? And,
and I think it's no coincidence that WordPress hit a milestone recently. I mean, it just hit 40% of the entire internet. That's a big
18.
number. And
it's a grown
so when we were looking at those numbers, I can't remember which recent episode, but we were looking at the numbers, and WordPress was at 40%, but WooCommerce by itself runs 8% of the entire internet, right? And so both of those numbers are significant numbers, which is causing people, I agree, Cory, I just want to mirror what you said, which is causing hosting companies and anybody that's in this ecosystem to pay attention.
Well, I think also what you said is that people are realizing that so much of the infrastructure is built on that it's like, oh, we, like, for hosting companies, they've invested, like GoDaddy's invested, like they've invested money, right? Like, and at this point they need to make sure that the boat that is WordPress does not capsize. So I think there's definitely a lot of kind of padding out your own space to be like, well, we've at least got a lockdown on these particular plugins with these feature sets. So we know that we can offer our customers a stable feature set, even if, everything else falls off the rails or, gets abandoned in the repo.
Yeah, and I think it also, the hosting companies are acquiring some of these technologies because it gives them a unique selling proposition, a competitive edge over the other hosting companies, right? If they're able to offer this thing either exclusively integrated, exclusively, or for free or whatever it is, right? Because they own it, then there's a competitive edge there.
Yeah, like WP Engine bought Genesis, and then so now they can offer a whole slew of themes. They also bought Atomic Blocks, which became Genesis Blocks, which are, basically like now they are, it really feels like they are hedging their bets so that if something happens, the community goes off the rails, possible, that they have their own in-house system and they'll be able to continue to serve their customers and it will not have the rug pulled out from under them.
But I'm betting there's only so much you can sell on server speed, right? And they've probably hit a plateau, right? So
marketing plateau. They're like, we're really fast.
Yeah.
We're super fast.
Everybody sells speed now, right? Everybody's fast. Everybody's got their caching figured out. So ultimately, you're whatever hosting company you go with. I mean, there are small differences, but ultimately you're buying the same hardware, you're buying the same caching, you're kind of buying the same thing. So they do need a new a new way to compete.
It's true.
And this is, if you play board games and things like this, I think about like Monopoly, and I go, and I'm not trying to say this in the evil sense, so give me a moment, but I go,
the non-evil monopolies, like benevolent dictators. It's a thing.
So I go, how do I win? How do I dominate? And so the equation with business most times is just profit. Now people like us and entrepreneurs like Steve and I go, it's profit plus purpose. Like we do those, we want to do good in the world and we want to do well in the world. And so I think about that. Okay. I want to win. I want to dominate. Okay. So, and that means expanding my empire. And so if I see this big wave called WordPress coming in, it's come to my attention, and all of a sudden I go, that is a market to go capture. And so how do I monetize that? How do I capture all of this value? And then we get these roll-ups, So look at, if we just game out, for a second, Liquid Web strategy, it's they have rolled out their own WordPress division called Stellar now, and to kind of group all these because it's become a great way for them to, one, increase revenue and market share in WordPress. It's a great thing. So you could just go, if you just play it out, I don't have any inside information, despite my dear friends there, you game it out, you just fast forward the tape and you go, I get it. It's going to be a war between the hosting companies with money. So if I'm WP Engine, Jason and Heather are brilliant over there. They know what they're doing, but I just go, how do I compete and offer more and more value? Because at the end of the day, do I want my customers going, prospective customers or now customers, going to Keensta, going to GoDaddy, going to whatever, the Liquid Web. And so how do I get ahead of them? One, specific like little nuance I've seen within the hosting companies besides WordPress is the local development. Somebody like Stephen Cosper can talk more about that kind of stuff, but I go, that's a tool set for developers building websites. It's a common thing. That makes total sense. Maybe it doesn't give them like specific number on the bottom line, but it helps them retain, grow that customer base. And those are smart strategies.
And the persona thing too. That's the same thing. Like GoDaddy Pro is going after the developers and the like smaller agencies and freelancers.
And it's interesting you say that, because if I was just marketing to developers alone, right, that's a very small slice of the pie, right? But what you're really saying is by putting in tools or efficiencies for developers, then the developers are going to bring their clients over to that hosting platform.
Right.
That's really the play that you're talking about.
I mean, developers are the smart investment, like always. Like, and you know what's interesting is how little WordPress and the community gets that.
But that's only
developers are the smart investment, but also marketers are the smart investment. And that is something that WP Engine has been going after for, I'd say, 5 or 6 years now. They started saying like, okay, we're a managed WordPress host, but also they were one of the first ones to start pushing this, we're a digital experience platform.
Yeah, and they integrated with HubSpot, which was a big deal.
Right.
Also, I do want.
And I was just going to say, this is only recent, right? Because before they were marketing to the content creators, to the site owners, right? To the bloggers of the world, right? And no matter what you say as a hosting company, that's always going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah. Interestingly, Liquid Web is also taking the marketing approach by bunching all of those brands into Stellar WP, and that then becomes the brand that is selling to what the small business user, the nonprofit, because Liquid Web can then keep their bigger perspective. And when you land on the homepage of whatever it is, you're landing on a targeted audience versus the broader Liquid Web audience. So by really consolidating all of those, they really do make it easier to market, and they make an approachable, friendly brand that we're going to see now. So I think we're not going to see so much Liquid Web anymore. We're going to see more of the Stellar WP. And that's going to basically, it's just because it's a different market, right? Liquid Web's probably going to go after more of the bigger fish. Interestingly, I wonder if if part of the Give thing, obviously, I know Matt and Devin as well. They're from here in SoCal. But I wonder if some of the impact of last year on the nonprofit industry factored into their decision, because nonprofits are not great at paying for things in the first place. But
what?
Yeah, well, it's hard to do. They don't have a lot of money, and last year was basically devastating. A lot of my clients are nonprofits, and there was a lot of devastation in that industry, and the impact that can have on a company like GiveWP or a product like GiveWP that's focused on that industry makes it kind of like, hey, obviously long term, nonprofits aren't going anywhere, but short term, it probably made some sense to go over there as well. So they kind of made lemonade out of lemons in a way, I think.
Isn't that what you do with lemons?
I prefer lemon meringue pie or a fresh lemon curd.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. But
you can also chop up your lemons and send them down to the garbage disposal if your garbage disposal is stinking. It's a wonderful thing to do. That's a little hint from Heloise there.
I have a follow-up question. So we've talked about, I had a dialogue on Twitter when the GiveWP happened, and I was, was like, what are your predictions for next? And I was like, well, they rhyme with yay prep or whatever I said. And lo and behold, ACF was just acquired by a smaller company, which made me very happy. But the other one that I said I'm seeing in the future of acquisitions is Gravity Forms. Does anyone want to take a bet if that will happen in the next 3 months or 6 months? Anyone? 6 months under or over? I'm taking bets. Hit me up on Twitter.
I gotta say, I'm putting a bid in for Gravity Forms right now. Give me a second.
Yeah, do it. Wait, I want the under first, real quick. You're gonna hedge the bets.
I'm trying not to comment on that particular one. But I got another one.
Really, Cory?
We touched a nerve.
Cory? How interesting.
I got another one for you. I think this would be even more compelling. I've been thinking for years. When does SiteGround get acquired? you know? So
I mean,
here's the
SiteGround
interesting.
It's a foreign company, so I think that's more complicated.
GoDaddy
Someone really needs to acquire User Role Editor Pro though, because it's really complicated to try to pay Russia. So they really need to like fix that situation. If you're hearing, if you're out there, please do that because I need some licenses to be renewed. Okay.
So GoDaddy has bought things, you know, internationally before, and I don't think that's a problem for them at all. But here's the interesting about SiteGround, and I've got friends there, and I love the work they do, and I'm actually a customer too. But they are in a country that has economics to like it's I'll just say it's a little bit cheaper to live in
No one else
Bulgaria.
has economics.
Bulgaria than Bulgaria, for instance. And then they've got a killer product. So they've, as EIG was, you know, acquiring all these companies, I thought to myself, SiteGround's in the best position as a potential acquisition target because they've got scale, economies of scale. They've got a killer product. Their service is unmatched still. When all the shared hosting went straight in the dump, you know, SiteGround was just up there. You could hit live chat and all that kind of stuff. And again, Cosper seen this. We've all seen this as the cycle of good hosting, bad hosting, good. Like everybody rides the wave.
I hate it.
That's the one I always think, how big of a check does it have to be for SiteGround to go, okay, you know, is it $500 million? Is it $1 billion? I don't know. How big of a check does it have to say? And they're kind of in the Gravity Forms thing for me is like Gravity Forms has been killing it for 10 plus years. Like they're doing so well. Mm-hmm. Why do they need to be acquired? Those two particular companies, I think, are in some of the best spaces because they're just dominant in what they're doing in kind of a little bit different way.
The reasoning for that type of thing becomes not about the business model or that the business is killing it. It becomes about the owner or owners tapping out. I mean, or wanting to do a different thing. That's really what makes the best acquisition, right? Because it's not a company that's struggling that you have to fix. It's a company that's got tons of revenue and is doing fine. And the owners are just like, we're kind of done.
Yeah.
That's the acquisition you want.
So I know we've only got 2 minutes here left, but you know, why is the reaction when a company in our industry gets acquired, the reaction is always like, oh well, you know, it was nice while that lasted, right? or well, for this thing's gonna suck now that it got taken over, right?
Remember Media Temple?
Like music. It's just like music.
Yeah, it's like if you get a producer to come in and produce the third album of your favorite band, and now it just sucks. Hello, that happens all the time. It just happens.
I think the reaction outweighs how often the products actually change when they get acquired.
Sometimes some people aren't fans of the people who work at certain hosting companies, and that's why they're not happy about it.
I understand that, but just because that hosting company bought the product that you use, does that mean you're going to stop using the product?
No, which is really
okay. Okay, my point exactly.
Now I'm just
there have been
product though.
There have been 2 instances of a plugin getting acquired by a smaller entity recently, and things have gone a little wrong. There was the dark mode plugin that ended up getting rebranded in the repository and turned into like some sort of editor. And then there was the WP user avatar plugin that got acquired and got rebranded to Profile Press. So you could actually set originally with WP user avatar, you would set an avatar for somebody not using Gravatar, like a default avatar.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a full membership plugin overnight.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
That's what you were expecting, though, right? I mean, because you blindly update your websites, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted real quick before we go. Can everyone say just what their next target they think is? Cory, I think it's Gravity Forms. That's you can't claim that one. Anybody else?
Gosh.
One that won't get you in trouble for exposing deals.
All right.
Zeke? Why did I call you Zeke? That's weird. Steve?
Zeke Interactive.
He has no
He's
insider
always said it's been
knowledge,
for sale, so
He has no insider knowledge about
How
that.
big is that check? That's what I want to know. Come on,
at
Cory.
least $5, man. At least $5. You know what?
No.
I'm
He
trying to
really
be
wants know.
careful. I'm trying to be careful with what I say because just like you said, as a user side, it doesn't feel good always. From a team side, if I start sharing names, I've got people and friends at those. I think forums is compelling, but I think those are way bigger swings at the fence. I think e-commerce is compelling, and one of the big ones out there is easy digital downloads.
They're coming for you. Pippin.
My serious answer for you say was going to be Ninja Forms.
I know it's going to be one of the forms. Someone's getting a form.
And I have no insider information. So if that's true, I apologize if I let the cat out.
Contact Form 7. Time is here. It is being acquired.
As long as they acquire it and shut it down, I'm fine with that.
And I'm going to go ahead and end it with I think Hello Dolly will be acquired.
Boom.
If I had to guess, I would think that maybe like Timbuktu or one of those backpack companies. I think that Matt's definitely going to go buy one of those so he can put it on his list for this next year.
Matt's just buying all his favorite companies. It's fine.
That's it, folks. I want to say thank you very much for hanging out with us. Cory, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Here's our outro. Thank you.
Hey.
So if you'd like to subscribe to us, go over to the website, WPwatercooler.com/subscribe, or you can subscribe to us over there. And if you want to listen to us on any of the different podcast networks and places, you can go and find us over there as well. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.